Donald Trump closes in on a landslide re-election. Australia One makes their case to the Queensland electorate, and white supremacists attack Riccardo Bosi. This is The Arc with Riccardo Bosi. Riccardo, how's the campaign trail going?
Brilliant, couldn't be better.
I can't look at you with a straight face. This has been a very funny week. The Queensland electorate, how are they treating the A1 message?
Oh, very well. The campaign's gone fantastically. A lot of support, a lot of volunteers. People ask, fair question. We've been running a lot of Zoom meetings this week. We had the first one this week had 300 on board, and they asked a lot of questions. Why are you not here? Well, I explained that my wife has MS. I'm her full-time carer. I literally have to carry her to and from the bathroom, so I can't just pick up sticks. Her medication reduces her immunity to virtually zero, so she's suspect with every possible infection. And so the COVID thing has shut it down. But that hasn't dampened the enthusiasm of the volunteers. They're running hard to help out. A lot of help coming towards the last push. The Q&As to meet the candidate. Zooms went well. The health-orientated Zoom went extremely well as well. And so we're doing good. We actually cracked 1 million hits on Twitter in the last 8 days.
Wow.
Which is not... It's not like globally important, but for a startup party, it's pretty impressive. So there's a lot of interest and there's a big swing. I noticed that one of my supporters told me that the Labor candidate and his campaign manager were quite bolshy and quite pushy early in the process. But these days, as my people look at them, they look at their shoelaces. The Labor candidate looks at his shoelaces and shuffles off. And I can tell they're worried because I've been hit mercilessly on Twitter by Labor trolls pretending to be something else, but the language they use reveals who they are. Yeah. And they've come out hard, and my people have come back twice as hard. So no, we're doing good. We're doing very well.
That's good to hear.
The key message, though, and they're getting it, and here's the point, and we've said it many times, and we've said it over the last few weeks on the show. This election is not about Queensland. This election is for the future of Australia, and that's not an overstatement. For example, we've been warning people that the COVID nonsense is a scam. The numbers prove that. We've been warning people that they will prevent you from working, travelling, doing anything unless you have your vaccine, and that's happening. And then we said they're going to come for your kids, and they're going to lock you up. And right on cue, thank you, Jacinda Ardern, the left-wing lunatic Prime Minister of New Zealand, has recently opened up what are internment camps. So this is Nazi Germany in the 1930s. They will lock you up for a couple of weeks in a COVID camp for your own safety. Yeah. And if you don't take the test, you'll be in there for another 2 weeks. And somehow the New Zealanders are accepting this. Yeah. And so what is happening there will happen here, folks. So as I said, this election is not about Queensland, it's about Australia. And this is the last chance for Australians to get somebody into Parliament who will speak the truth. Now, if you don't believe me, look at Jacinda Ardern's own statements. It's all there. Just do the research. It's not good. It's not good. I'm sure there's a clip of her explaining this to people. But anyway, so the election's going very well. We're optimistic. Tracy in Currumbin is doing a stand-up job. She's just brilliant. I mentioned it last week, but I just can't get over it. No political experience, just a businesswoman. Lived and worked in the electorate all her life, and she's feisty, she's tough, she's smart. She knows the issues. She drills down deep so that people know they're getting a good candidate there. And the competitors just wilt like flowers in the sun. They really do. They're just they're not up to speed. Yeah. So we're going well. But the main point is, one more time, this election is not about Queensland. It's about Australia, and it's the last chance we have to get somebody into Parliament who will speak the truth. Now, there are a lot of people. I get a lot of pushback saying it's illegal. There's no constitutionality. We should be doing the lawful rebellion. We should be going back to the original constitution. Australia's a corporation. Now, all that's true. It is entirely true. But once again, one more time, the reason we must play by their rules to get in is it gives us legitimacy. Because once we're in Parliament, we have legitimacy. The world must pay attention. Yeah. And then the world will hear about Queensland and Australia, and the fight back begins. Yeah.
Everyone, you've been called a lot of things this week, and it's been absolutely hilarious to watch it. See, this is the thing though, Riccardo. You are, like, this show And I love bringing these little clips up in my posts on Facebook. We just keep getting proven right on these things. You know, we say they're going to force a vaccination on you and they can take your kids away, and then you see the Western Australia legislation come out. It's really scary. And you know what? I don't blame people for thinking that you're an insider, you're a plant, and you might be conducting the whole thing, Riccardo. I mean, you've got the expertise for it.
Absolutely, it's all a controlled opposition, false flag operation. Just turn off the commercial news and read and study, and the pieces fall into place.
Yeah, and this is the thing, though. It's right there, as you're saying. It's right there. You guys just have to do a Google search. One, you'll find out. You can find everything you want to about Riccardo and disprove everything, all the smears thrown at him, just like that. But two, you can find videos of, for example, and I'm about to play this, Jacinta Ardern telling you, we're going to lock you up. It's not a conspiracy theories. I know that's my knee-jerk reaction to, and it's healthy to have that. But you can't
for ages I was telling you what was going to happen, and you sort of looked at me, tilted your head and thought, yeah, okay, mate. And then a couple of weeks later or a couple of months later, up it would pop.
But that's the thing, though. This is what I want all of our viewers to do. I have a knee-jerk reaction. I say, I don't think that's right. But the conversation doesn't end there. We keep talking, and we keep saying, okay, let's talk the evidence out. And here's the evidence, guys.
Be tested. Well, they can't now. If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested, they have to keep staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer. So I think most people will look at that and say, I'll take the
God.
Isn't that scary? I saw that. Like, I understand the video looks really bad, guys, and it makes her look terrible, but that is a freaky statement, and she said it in a very crazy way. I'm genuinely, if you're in New Zealand, come to Australia. Leave your socialist ideas over there. Come to Australia. We want you here. That country is going down. And we predicted she was going to get elected, and she got elected.
In an alleged landslide. Give me a break. And the other point is just another 2 weeks. Just another 2 weeks. Where have we heard that before? Comrade Dan and the fake chief health officer down there. Just 2 weeks. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. It'll be 2063 before some people wake up and realise you've been locked up like political prisoners in a gulag. So, folks, that's it. That's the wrap-up the Queensland election. That's the last point. If you like what you see in New Zealand, vote Liberal, Labor, Nationals and Greens.
Or move there.
But if you want a voice for reason in a parliament, the only one that's willing to speak up, vote for me in Nicola, vote for Tracy in Currumbin.
Yeah.
And we'll have a couple of voices. And watch this space. The world's going to change. This is the beginning of the end for them. Their game, their world is coming to an end, and we're going to win Australia back.
All right. So that's the plant issue this week. That's sort of what's been smeared at you. But we've also got another one in the same week, and I don't know how you managed to pull this off, Riccardo. I'm calling it a measured nawaz. You managed to be called both a racist, white supremacist, white nationalist, and also the white supremacists are coming after you for not being more radical on racial issues and immigration. How did you do that? And why are they going after you now?
It's a good question. But it's even better than that, because here's the line. I was called a pedophile, a mason, what was the next one? The white supremacist, the racist. And because I praised General John Monash for his exquisite leadership in the First War, which actually ended the war months ahead of when they thought it would end, and thus saving countless Allied and German lives. Because I praised General John Monash, I'm now a Zionist. Because apparently, I didn't know this, and I don't much care, apparently he headed up the Australian Zionist Federation. All I care is that he saved lives by his brilliant generalship. So the names are coming after me. How did I manage it? I didn't. See, my opponents are extremely worried. Liberal, Labor, Nationals and Greens are terrified because they can't put a label on me because there isn't a label. They keep saying, what are you? It's easy. I'm an Australian for Australia. If it's good for Australia, it's in. If it's bad for Australia, it's out.
Yeah.
It is as straightforward as that. So that way, if you're a white supremacist, I'm not sufficiently white and supremacist enough. And if you're not, I'm too much.
Yeah.
As I said before, for the Christians, I'm not Christian enough. And for the non-Christians, I'm too Christian. Please. It's really simple, folks. We at Australia One, we're Australians for Australia, and that's it.
Yeah.
It is really simple. It is not hard to get that around your head.
I mean, can't the politicians just do their damn jobs?
No.
I mean, we wouldn't be doing this otherwise. What are we doing?
I'd rather be doing something else. I preferred my former life, I can tell you. Being bitch-slapped on a daily basis and patiently responding to questions is my job, and I get that. It's no problem.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Sorry.
Oh, I'll put up a post, and they'll take one word out of context, and then the pile-on begins with all their set-up trolls trying to distract me and supporters from understanding the truth. So I'll just patiently answer as many questions as I can.
And what would you be doing if you weren't doing this?
Doing politics?
Yeah.
Man, oh man. I'd be travelling the world as a consultant, flying to Rome for pizza, Greece for souvlaki, Vienna for a schnitzel.
Oh, like you were in the UAE.
Like I was doing before.
Oh, okay.
Life was bloody nice, I can tell you. But as I've said before, my wife and I looked at each other and said, we've got to do something.
Yeah.
Nobody else seems to be doing it. We ran for the Conservatives. That turned out to be a busted flush.
Yeah.
The people are, not surprisingly, completely untrustworthy, which is a safe place to be right now. Don't trust anyone. Trust yourself. Don't fight the government, become the government.
Yeah.
And that's why we kicked off A1, because we can only trust ourselves, because the major parties have got us to this place.
Yeah.
And so we've got to turn it around.
I want to go on record and just say I'd be chasing girls, playing video games, and enjoying my property development job, but the government saw to that I shouldn't have that job through their choice of policies and economic policies that led to the economic downturn we're in right now.
Yeah.
They reckon we're coming out of it. I'm like, come on.
No, their goal is not to get out of the economic downturn. Their goal is to destroy small to medium-sized enterprises. Their goal is to destroy the middle class, because a middle class, an educated and wealthy middle class, they have ideas above their station, according to the elites, and they can't tolerate that. It's not an overstatement to say this is Germany in the 1930s.
Yep.
And it's still early enough. It's not quite 1938, not quite 1939. We're getting close. But if we get into Queensland, we can turn it around. We can turn the clock back to the beginning of the 30s and prevent totalitarianism creeping into Australia. And whether it's right wing or left wing, it's a nonsense division anyway.
Yeah.
They are so close to each other. They are so almost perfectly aligned.
Yeah.
Except one's black and one's red. And it's a lie anyway.
Yeah.
It's totalitarianism.
Yeah.
Choose your poison, communism, Nazism. We're against both.
Yeah.
And we can turn it back. So if we win Queensland, Australia can genuinely breathe a sigh of relief and just sit back, buy popcorn and watch the show.
Mate, that would be great. In other news, apparently 40% of ASIO's resources are dedicated to radical right-wingers in Australia. What the hell? Like, they say in their defense, they say Islamic terrorism is still the predominant threat they're focusing on. But 40%? What? Can you please explain this to me?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I've got to get this gentleman's name
please.
first.
No,
I want to get it right.
Perfectly fine.
I'd hate to misquote this erudite academic's name.
Because we've got a situation where 30,000 Chinese spies are here in Australia.
Yep.
And I just want to know what 40% is. I want to know what 40% of government resources at ASIO is. What does that practically look like?
Well, that's a great kickoff. Let's go with the 30,000 Chinese spies. That was recently revealed by a Chinese dissident. Came out about, I guess, maybe less than a week ago. There have been a series of videos coming out, and the truth is starting to come out about Biden, about Obama receiving $1 billion so the Chinese could militarize the South China Sea. That's why the United States was so quiet on it. So all of these massive leaks are coming out. Now, I'm sure the mainstream media hasn't covered it. The ABC, the official organ of the Chinese Communist Party, hasn't covered it. But this is news, folks. So if you haven't heard about Obama getting $1 billion through the Bidens, and Hunter did the deal while Joe videoed it because they wanted evidence. So the Chinese. Anyway, so all of these stories are coming out about China and spies. And it was recently released that 30,000 Chinese spies are in Australia, which is extraordinary because they've only got 60,000 in the US. So obviously the idea that the Chinese believe that they own Australia is quite sound. They think they do. Well, I've got some bad news for them. But anyway, so 30,000 Chinese spies in Australia. ASIO can't find them, of course. Oh, God, no. So how corrupt or incompetent is ASIO? Because there's only one or two possible options here. 30,000 Chinese spies, they can't find them. And yet, 40%, it's quoted, 40% of their workload is on right-wing extremists. Now, let's find out who the go-to guy is that produces that number. Now, I saw his name first time during that hit piece the Sydney Morning Herald did on me, where apparently, I'm a problem, or there is a problem, and they mentioned this Greg Barnes from that erudite university deacon in Victoria. So he said, so let's look into Mr. Greg Barnes and find out who this go-to guy is that is warning us. He's running around clutching his pearls with his hair on fire, screaming, there's a right-wing conspiracy. Now, who is Greg Barnes and what's his perspective? Now, why would he be such a good go-to guy to line up this predictive programming for people? Because this is what they're doing, folks, just so you're aware. They tell you there's a problem, and then, oh, look, they pick somebody to put in that spot that they've created. So Greg Barnes is an academic at Deakin University. Greg Barnes, from what I've read of him, is an Islamic apologist. And to say left-wing would be an understatement. He's currently working on a paper about religious diversity and social cohesion. And the thrust of the paper is that social cohesion is problematic. And as a policy objective, maybe we shouldn't put it in that category and make it a policy objective. So here we go. We have a left-winger, an Islamic apologist, arguing that social cohesion is not a policy objective anymore. So this lunatic, in my opinion, this lunatic who wants to fragment the country and break it up into 1,000 little groups is the same guy that they go to prove there's a right-wing conspiracy. Well, ASIO, you've just shot yourself in the foot. Sydney Morning Herald, you shot yourself in the foot. It's a con, it's a setup. You've been caught out. So, Greg Barnes, look for his name. So next time you hear Greg Barnes quoted as the source about right-wing extremism, it's a setup. You're being lied to. So congratulations, Greg. Congratulations, and more power to your arm in your academic endeavours. But mate, stick to what you know, and just be honest about who you are.
Yeah.
You're an Islamic apologist and a left-wing loon. That's okay. You're allowed to be, but stop pretending that you're an independent observer and commentator on other things, because you're not. So there you go. Yeah. ASIO, you can't find Chinese spies, but you can find a left-wing loon to tell us there's a right-wing conspiracy. Well done.
If I could ask Greg Barnes one question, it would be, what are you defining as a white supremacist? Or a radical right-winger? Like, what are the policies specifically, if we're going to talk specifics? He's a professor, after all. Is it that they're anti-Jew? Does it play into the Nazi theme? Is it that they're white supremacists? Is it that they're, I don't know, what did right-wingers
They love their country?
do? Is it that they love their country? And I'd want to go through those things and be like, okay, well, this week, Riccardo, if he truly is someone who did that, who helped with that hit piece from the Sydney Morning Hamas, how is it that Riccardo's been attacked this week for being too Zionist? How is it that he's been attacked this week for not being white supremacist enough once he calls out the white supremacists for their inaccurate depiction of biology? And how is it, I don't understand how he can be the right winger you paint him to be. This reminds me of a situation with Mejid Nawaz, who you've heard of, where he was categorized by the Southern Poverty Law Center in the USA as being a radical Islamic, I think a radical anti-Islamic extremist. So he was against Islam. Yet at the same time, on the other side of the Atlantic, in the UK, he was categorized as a radical Muslim extremist. So one was for Islam and one was against Islam. And he ended up suing the Southern Poverty Law Center for $4 million, and he won a couple of years ago.
Oh, terrific. Are you telling me there's an option here for me?
Riccardo, I'm saying get your lawyers ready, because if they want to keep these attacks up, I think A1 needs a bit of funding. I really do. I think.
Well, I mean, we can run a much better campaign with $4 million. Let me tell you, that'll be fun.
Exactly, because I mean, you didn't even pay for that Sydney Morning
Do
Herald.
I sue Deakin or Barnes personally?
I think you can do both. Why not?
Okay.
Two for one.
We can do that.
Yeah.
How about we do an investigation in ASIO and drag their sorry asses up before a Royal Commission too? We might hit them up for treason and sedition. Oh, we can have some fun now.
Baby steps. I think there's plenty of work to do with these corporations, but that's not what we're about. We're actually not about enriching ourselves, guys. We actually, as we said before, we had lives before this. You guys forced us into this, and that is how I know you will lose, because you are forcing more and more people to go against your progressive globalist agenda, and they're not gonna sign on with it. You know, average people who aren't anti-vaxxers becoming people who don't want to take a vaccine. They don't want to touch your vaccine because it's very suspicious that, you know, vaccines which typically take like 20 years plus to develop, that you're saying, oh, we'll have it by Christmas. It's very suspicious. You know, you take a guy like Nigel Farage. He's not an anti-vaxxer. He vaccinated all his kids, and he's saying, I'm not taking a vaccine from the government that's developed it within a few months. It's not even safe. And I'm not going to be the guinea pig either. And look, and that's the lesson we've got to get from this, guys. The fact is, you need to check these facts. You can't rely on the government authorities, and you can't rely on the scientists. You need a diversity of opinions, because the science is not a monolith. It's not one opinion. It's multitude of opinions. Ask Albert Einstein. There are petitions against him by tens of thousands of scientists in the past. They didn't agree with him, yet he proved them all wrong. Science is not a democracy. But I wanted to move on, and the following segment is directly for a lovely young lady who started Reignite Democracy Australia. Her name is Monica Schmidt. Now, she is doing a phenomenal job in exposing what Dan Andrews is doing in Victoria. And Monica, this video is directly for you, and obviously my viewers, but it's directly for you. Why? Whether we like it or not, whether we chose this or not, we're a part of the alternative media. We're prepared to have the discussions and the debates that the ABC, who we pay $1 billion a year, don't have. They don't have these discussions, and that's a problem. So this is what we're doing. You recently brought on an MP, which a lot of Australians like, called Craig Kelly. He's done an interesting job. He's been very outspoken against the Dan Andrews government. However, I think he's wrong. We think he's wrong on something, and that's the Defence Legislation Amendment Bill, which has come before our Parliament recently. Now, you sat down with Craig Kelly and you talked about this, and in a second I'm going to play a 4-minute video of you talking with him, a 4-minute segment. And we have a few problems. There's a few discrepancies with that. And we know Craig Kelly has said he's consulted widely, but we think there might be some problems. So please listen to the segment. Please listen to Riccardo's objections, because this isn't a hit on you or your organisation. We're both in the pursuit of truth, and we both want to get to the bottom of this. Because if either of us are wrong on this, then something's it needs to happen. So let's check out the video.
Already allowed so foreign troops or foreign service personnel to Australia. There's nothing that this legislation changes in that respect.
So I'll just clarify a little bit. So are you saying that the only thing this legislation really does is it protects them just like the Australian troops are protected when they're doing the same work, even though they're foreigners? Is that correct?
Correct.
Right, okay. I don't know if you cut out a little bit there. You cut out a bit for
so
me.
There's nothing that changes the way about how we allow foreign troops into the country. There's nothing that this changes that allows foreign troops into the country. Have foreign troops often sounds that's a bit suspicious. When we say foreign troops, non-Australian forces who actually come into Australia now, and they do so under exchange. The Navy, the Air Force, and the commandos, and we've got Australians serving overseas with the Americans and the Canadians and the British as well at the moment on these exchange programs.
Right.
So just basically to make sure that when they're operating, everyone has the same legal rights as protections here in Australia. That's if there's a major incident like, let's God forbid, there's never a major incident like the Link Cafe again, where there's the chance of rolling out a group of the commandos. But if there is, I think every Australian would want to see that team go into action as they've been trained. And so if you know the guy, if you've been the guy next to you, whether he's a Kiwi or an American or whatever he is, he's your comrade in arms.
Of course.
And you're going in to protect a free society.
Yeah.
And I'd rather, that guy's, I'd rather the team be put together, even though there may be some New Zealanders and Americans and Kiwi and Canadians in there, say to these guys, look, sorry, because you're from New Zealand, you have to actually go and sit back in the barracks and not go into protect our nation.
Well, yeah, Craig, that answers the question. And I just want, for anyone who is listening there, someone like Craig Kelly and someone like myself who runs RDA, if there was something wrong with this bill, we would be fighting it.
We'd be jumping up.
Yeah.
I'd be jumping up about it. And that's just not my opinion. I've asked a lot of other parliamentarians, okay, give me your opinion. Am I missing something here? Have I read something wrong? Like with Andrew Hastings, former SAS commander, Andrew, tell me how it worked with you. How did you actually go where you had sort of like foreign, so-called foreign troops, and you had people from overseas working with you? How did you actually go about it? Explain it all to me. So look, it's great that everyone's looking at this stuff. We've got to, and I'll tell you what you do. You've got to look at all this legislation with the finest of fine tooth. It's everyone that looked at it and went through and asked questions. That's exactly what we need to do all the time.
Great. Well, we'll move on to the next topic, but before we do, I'll just say that I think the reason, people don't trust the government right now. So if there's any crack of possibility that we're being fooled, I think some people go pretty hard, and I understand that, but everyone needs to know that it's okay. We've done our research. So
that's good. You'd much rather have that. I don't put overreaction. I'd much rather have that than the blase. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm sure Dan will look after it.
Oh, I think that sentiment is over here in Victoria. There's no doubt about that. Now,
all right.
Without realising it, Craig Kelly has let the cat out of the bag. And I won't speak to his motive or his understanding on the subject. And the cat that he let out of the bag was this. He said, if there's another Lindt Siege Cafe, we'd like our exchange soldiers from other countries who are part of, say, an assault team to go in together. That makes sense. One small problem, the legislation specifically says this is not to be used in the delivery of force. The legislation is Defence Force aid to the civil community, which is fire, drought, flood, not Defence Force aid to the civil power, which is siege hostage resolution or using lethal force.
Okay, so
he has specifically, again, I'm not speaking to Craig Kelly's motives or understanding on the topic.
Sure.
But he is wrong. We are being conned because the legislation specifically says it's for fire, drought, flood. Now, second point, blanket legislation like that, and the point is we don't trust the government. Why should we trust the government? These are the same people that can't release the names of 90 pedophiles. And there's countless reasons why we shouldn't trust Scott Morrison and his government. But you don't put blanket legislation like that out. We have a thing called the Status of Forces Agreement. Whenever a foreign military individual or formed body enters our nation or we work with them, the chain of command isn't automatically they must follow our orders or we follow their orders. The Status of Forces Agreement outlines very specifically what they are allowed to do or not allowed to do. Give you an example. When I was in the Middle East, I was the National Commander of the forces over there. I had the authority to tell the Commanding General, our troops will not engage in that operation because it is not in Australia's national interest to do so. It's known as the red card. There's no actual red card, but any national command of Australian troops in a coalition setting has the authority to tell the commander, regardless of his rank, his or her rank, we're not playing.
Yep.
Okay. So that's covered under the Status of Forces Agreement. So if we have soldiers coming over here working with us, that's fantastic. but it can be done on a case-by-case basis. You know, Sergeant Smith, USMC, is working with SAS. Great. Status of Forces Agreement, very specific, and that can cover immunity for certain jobs. For example, Linseed Cafe. No problem. There's blanket authorisation to give immunity to people, and he's let the cat out of the bag. He mentioned the delivery of force. The legislation doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't trust them. It's got nothing to do with Kelly. I don't know whether Kelly understands it or not the point. But whoever's drafted it and briefed him either doesn't understand what the legislation says, or they do and they're concealing the truth of it. So it's a lie. Now, to change this legislation to allow them to deliver lethal force requires one tiny amendment. Now, we've just seen New Zealand open up camps. We've heard stories about things going on in Australia at the moment. And do you really trust the government not to bring in foreign forces and foreign police? They might already be here. We don't know yet. That's how little we trust the government. And so, no, this is now a busted flush. This legislation should not be passed.
Yep.
And if it is, don't be surprised if you see foreign troops and police in Australia telling you what to do. And as I said before, if you think VicPol's bad, I've lived and worked with real police forces overseas, and they are brutal. Brutal. So, no, the Defence Legislation Enhancement Bill 2020, it's bad law, and it's unnecessary.
If we're wrong on this, guys, Monica specifically, please, we want a response. I mean, if we're wrong on this, then that's a correction we need to make.
Absolutely. Happy to be corrected.
Exactly. But we're both in the pursuit of truth here. And if we're right, and as you using your own words, you'd rather people have the knee-jerk reaction of saying, I don't trust you. If we're right, there is some serious problems we need to talk about with our government, including Craig Kelly and his analysis of this. If you're right, then that's okay. There's no risk. But there's a higher risk if we're right, and we do want a response from this, because you don't have to speak to us directly, but just address these concerns, because this is very concerning. You know, I've got a niece, I've got a family. I am very concerned about this, and I would definitely want to hear your response on this. Did you have anything else on this topic?
No, that's it.
We've had an interesting situation this week. What would you say to people who say that you're Islamophobic?
First of all, I'm not afraid of Islam. Secondly, what that term is an undefined term. I have no problem with Muslims. Muslims are people. People can make their mind up, they can change their minds, so no problem with Muslims. My problem is with Islam, and specifically not the religion of Islam, the religious elements of it, but with political and cultural Islam, which are inconsistent and incongruent with Australian law. So there's the problem. And yet we have people that have this kumbaya version of all religions are equal. No, they're not by a long stretch. There's the golden thread that runs through all religions, do unto me as they would do unto you. That's a complete lie.
Yep.
It's a complete lie. The Quran never once mentions love. The Bible, the New Testament, is all about love. Turn the other cheek. Where is their comparison? So I'm not Islamophobic. I just have a problem with ideologies which would damage Australia. Now, the federal government banned a visit from a pro-life speaker out of the US because they considered him a risk and a danger to Australia. And yet they will never once mention the threat of Islamic terror. We had the former head of ASIO, Duncan Lewis, actually go on the record saying there's no Islamic threat as far as he's concerned. Now, I'm sure he was just, well, I'm not sure. I won't speculate as to what he said and why he said it, except for one thing. He said there's no Islamic threat.
Yep.
Give me a break, please. So, it's not Muslims I have a problem with. In fact, I have, as I said once before, I think the support of Muslims is not low, let's say.
Yeah.
I get a lot of support because most of them aren't interested in radical theories. Yeah. They're not interested in becoming suicide bombers. Yeah. They want to raise a family. They want to build a business. They want to go to the mosque.
Yeah.
And yet there's this tiny little group at the centre,
yeah,
the Islamists, the extremists. And they're not extremists. They're actually practising Wahhabism, that strict interpretation of Islam, which is the only correct interpretation of Islam.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in having a debate with people who think they know what they're talking about, because I've lived in Islam. I've had a lived experience. It's not about going to my mate's place who makes a nice falafel. That's not the question. And in fact, let's hear from His Highness Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who's the Foreign Minister of the United Arab Emirates. Now, just a quick question. I'm either Islamophobic or I'm pro-Islam, because I worked in the UAE for 5 years. And once again, this is where I just confuse people. Why did I work for the UAE? Very simple. If you want a stable world, you need a stable Middle East. If you want a stable Middle East, you need the UAE. It is as simple as that. They straddle this East-West divide, this Christian-Muslim divide, extremely well. It's an extremely delicate position for them to be. But I can tell you, they're very strict on their radicals, their extremists. But let's hear Abdullah say it for himself.
And let me say this in English so you can understand what I'm saying.
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
You can see why he translated that in English for them. They don't trust the media either, and why should they?
No, trust is in short supply globally, more so in the Middle East. But there you go. So I'm not Islamophobic. I'm not afraid of Islam. Not much scares me.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with the Muslims. It's got to do with the political and cultural elements of that particular ideology, which are antithetical to Australian law and Australian values.
Yeah. You ready for a personal question?
Shoot.
When was the last time, because you obviously worked in the UAE, when was the last time you got paid anything from a UAE company or individual or whatever entity?
When I left the UAE and I got my final payout.
When was that?
6 years ago. 6 years ago this month.
Yeah? What, 2014, 2015?
2014. Okay. October 2014, we logged back into Australia.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Okay. And what, so do you get any Jewish money? That's I have to ask these questions.
Yeah, no,
this
go
is the
for it.
problem. You guys have traumatized me now. I'm okay. I'm not seeing a therapist. Maybe I will soon. But I've got this little nagging voice in the back of my head saying, what about this? What about that? Where is it coming? All right. So you can't say I don't do anything for you. You've got a nice close-up camera on him. Riccardo, are you receiving any Jewish money from any entity? And don't dodge the question,
No.
Say it to the camera.
Emphatically, no. No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Not a cent.
Not a cent from any undisclosed source.
Your kids aren't going to school for free or anything,
I
like.
wish.
Yeah. It'd be nice if this paid, wouldn't it? It would be.
If this
very
paid, it'd be
nice.
great. No, as I said, we had a very comfortable life, and let's just say it's much less comfortable now. But we don't complain about that. That's fine.
Yeah, well, it's only coming up now because they keep pushing us on it. It's like, okay, you really want to know? Our life
Okay,
isn't
let's get personal. You want to get personal? Here's how personal it's been since I got back. We went from $1 million a minute on an extremely good contract. We were getting paid incredible money, and my God, it was nice. It really was. In the last 6 years, and I won't say exactly when, things got so tight. I had something like $23 in the bank, and I went to Coles and I swiped my card to buy food for the family, which normally costs $200 a week. And I had $23, so I went through every possible, save 5 cents here, save 10 saves 10 cents there. Buy the cheapest everything, and I had that knot in my gut, hoping that when I swiped the card, it would get through. So if I'm getting paid, I'd like to see the money, because we've been bouncing along on very little for a long time.
Yeah.
And we're still moving ahead.
Yeah.
So if people want to think that I'm being funded by somebody, check the bank account, folks, and I'm sure ASIO's already done that, and they can verify it.
Yeah.
There's virtually nothing there.
Yeah.
And every cent that we get from donations, and it comes from A1, and it comes in the form of 10, 20, 30, sometimes 500, and sometimes even much more than that, but not much more, but a little more than that, but not a lot.
Yeah.
We don't get massive donations, and that I love that.
Yeah.
Because it's In fact, one woman got back to us and said, look, I donated $100. My husband found out and he's really cranky because we can't afford it.
Oh, no.
And we said, know the pain, it's okay.
Yeah.
So we sent it back. That's where our money comes from. And every cent of that money goes to the party.
Yeah.
And nothing comes to us.
Yeah.
You can check my pantry if you like.
Yeah.
Right? We don't. There's not too many filet mignon in the fridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can honestly say.
So fair question.
Yeah,
Where's the
sure.
money coming from? Not anybody else.
Okay.
And no, we're clean.
Yeah.
We're clean as a whistle. So I hate to
Yeah.
break all your hearts. Dig as you want to. In fact, one troll on Twitter said, you made all these allegations about me. I'm either left wing or right wing or I'm a Zionist or I'm not, whatever. And he said, I've got a bunch of stuff on you I'm going to dump on you, so you better shut up. And I just went back with 3 words, go for it.
I want to know more about
Silence.
Yeah.
Silence for a day. Then he came back with a couple of pathetic circumstantial photographs meant nothing. And even my supporters were watching, terrified that maybe this guy's got some dirt. And he came back with nonsense. And I said, so you run away, you resurface, you're still telling everybody else, but you won't. You threaten to drop a bomb on me, but there's nothing to drop.
Yeah.
Go for it. One more time.
Yeah.
And one more time, nothing turned up.
Yeah. And nameless accounts.
Nameless accounts.
Just sackless.
Piling on, right?
Yeah.
Non-player, what are they called? Non-player characters, NPCs?
Yeah.
They're like a bunch of non-player characters for you guys that are gamers. And so they threatened to dump. I said, go for it.
Yeah.
Bring it out in the open.
Yeah.
Dig as much as you want. Go.
Yeah.
Go hard.
Yeah.
Nothing. Zip. Nada.
Yeah.
Bupkis. Donut.
Yeah. And this is the quote. This is the quote of the episode. Okay, and it's not my own. I actually don't know who to credit this to. I've heard a bunch of people say it, like Tony Robbins. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. Now we know who's doing this. Riccardo wasn't copying all of these attacks before. Last week let the record show this. Last week we talked about white supremacy. I said, you're a white supremacy, convince me otherwise. And, we looked at it. And, I uploaded a video of you debating on the Eden Monaro night this year. I think it was in June or May.
July 4.
And you were debating, 4 white supremacists. One of them wasn't because he didn't say a thing during it. I think he was nodding with you. And, you disagreed on a topic. That's what it was. It was a disagreement. Yet these people, they have no idea, these right-wingers, they have no idea how much similar they have with the left. Now, Riccardo, I know that you've probably, you may have given up on these people. They're not people that you could probably convince. You think they're just too far gone. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's not a matter of not wanting to convince them. I don't have time.
Okay.
I don't have time. Anybody that's been in sales know the first thing you do is you find the one that's willing to buy, because you've got to go through a bunch of no's before you get to the yes, but you've got to find the yes as quick as you can by getting through the no's as quick as you can.
Yeah.
So when you live on sales, you learn that real quick.
Yeah.
I don't have time to persuade the unpersuadable. But what these guys, if I had time, this is what I'd say to them. In group, I understand their perspective, in the sense that as an academic study, in-group preferencing is normal. Everybody does it. We had an Emirati in Afghanistan, and he was black as the ace of spades. And we were when we designed the organisation that we were going to deploy with, and we deployed with them. We'd name them Team Gold, Team Red, Team Green, Team Blue. So that way, when the enemy were listening in, if they happened to pick it up on the chatter on the radio, it would mean nothing. This is gold, this is blue.
Yeah.
It's a meaningless term.
Yeah.
Anyway, this particular individual was allocated to Team White.
Yeah.
And he just flatly refused to deploy until he was put in Team Black. So in-group preferencing is a natural human desire. It's visceral. It's hardwired into us.
Yeah.
It's not racism. It's just called in-group preferencing. Yeah. Now, there are many layers. As you examine this, as you become more evolved as an individual, you realise that first very visceral desire is to find people that look and sound like you. It's a very physical, and that makes sense. That makes
exactly.
sense.
Look at the western suburbs, full of
There you go.
ethnics.
There you go.
Yeah.
When the Italians came out after the war, they congregated around Leichhardt. Now their second and third generation kids moved out, no problem. My parents, young kids, had the wit to understand that their kids would be Australians with an Italian background, but Australians. And so they chose, as soon as they could, they moved out of that Italian enclave and they actually never lived in Leichhardt, but they lived in a small group. But they moved as quickly as they could to an area where they could grow up with Anglo-Celts, Australians, because this was going to be their country. And while they might have an Italian heritage, their kids would have to be Australians. That's how wise they were. So this in-group preferencing, the first challenge is to get over that physical similarity. But then as you evolve as an individual, as you grow and mature, you realise there are emotional aspects that you start to resonate with. And then there are mental aspects, concepts, and there are psychological, and then there are spiritual/cultural, and then the values. And you start to associate with values. And we had that from a very early age. I used to watch, like most kids, you watch TV, and I never saw colour. Not colour TV. I just never saw the colour of the character. I just saw the justice in the motive. I saw the courage that was required to overcome adversity. That's what resonated with me. And maybe our parents just raised us slightly better than most. And so that's what's profoundly important. So now in-group preferencing still applies to me, but I don't look at colour. I want to surround myself with men and women of courage, of wisdom, people of faith in themselves as well as faith in God, but faith in themselves. People who value love and compassion. So that in-group preferencing still resides. I still have no desire to hang around loons, because I wish to associate with a certain breed of person. And so, I understand them, but it's such childish nonsense to accord to an individual a whole set of characteristics based on melanin in their skin. And eventually they might grow up, but I don't have time. I've got to find as quickly as I can as many people that value the higher things in life, the higher values, then we band together and then we can do something about saving the country.
So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Keep the questions coming. You just gave us the biggest gift. I'm going to create a shirt for you, Riccardo, and your black supporters, which says black as the ace of spades. It's going to have your face on it, and all your black supporters can wear it.
There you go.
Because it's something you should be proud of. You should be proud of who you are, your ethnicity. You should be proud of your country and what you believe in and your culture, religion. You should wear that as a badge of honour. That's why I love my eyebrows so much. You always hear me cracking jokes about them. It's because it's a mark of honour. My grandfather had them. He was Syrian. My dad had them. And when people see me, they're like, that is Joseph's son, or that is Basil's grandson. They just know, and they know the quality, the way that comes from. And you said it in your debate with them that according to the white supremacist ideology, we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be fighting their battles because it turns out there's a lot of overlap on the things we want that they want, but they just come from a completely different angle, a completely distorted angle. But I don't know if you guys are going to be convinced of this, but you're very similar to the radical left wing. You're a tribalist. I don't feel like you're blaming the world for the issues rather than dealing with them yourself. I mean, please, you could totally join the fight with us, but you got to leave that anti-science stuff behind. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying anti-science as in climate change is anti-science if you disagree with it. That's not the thing. This is something where we know. I'm a walking example. Riccardo is a walking example that it's bunk. Your theory about culture and ethnicity, it's bunk. And to wrap this segment up, and please, I want to hear an answer on this because no one's answered it yet. If it truly is that white supremacy is true, then why is it that in all of these Anglo countries, they're so shit at keeping their culture? Why is that you guys are so crap at defending it? Why is it that the ethnics are the ones defending your culture? Now, the truth is, it's not that they're crap at it. It's that there's nuance to it. What do you say to someone that's, half Asian, half white? Where do they fall? Huh? Are they not? Are they? Like, is it like from Harry Potter? They're a mud blood. They're filthy. They're not purebred. I'm not going to give this any more oxygen, but keep the questions coming. As you saw, we addressed as many as we could, but they keep firing them back at us. But send us something substantive. I'll chuck the image up if it's credible. Send us something substantive so that we can actually, because if there's something wrong with this guy, I want to know, because I'm doing a show with him every week. And I've got some serious issues if anything comes out and it's true. So send it through and we'll talk. But that's the end of the mailbag for this week.
Perfect.
Let's talk to some other loonies over at Canberra.
Which ones?
Which one?
Which loonies?
I just deal with them as a general group. The Wolverines in Parliament, as you put it.
Oh, here we go. This is a very short segment. Apparently, we have some children in Parliament. There's a bipartisan group of individuals, and then their motives are good, of Labor and Liberal people, MPs who wish to work together to reveal the level of infiltration by China into Australia. And they've produced these little stickers, little Wolverine paw, and they put the stickers around Parliament House on their doors and things like that. They're part of this secret kids club. Apparently it comes out of a US movie, the Wolverines. Someone should remind these children that they are part of the government, part of the Parliament. They're being paid by people to do their bloody job. And they had time to waste making little stickers. Open your mouth and say your piece. Andrew Hastie, Kimberly Kitching, and all the rest of you children out there, grow up. This is not a game. You will do more to protect your pay packet than you will the people that you allegedly represent. So stop the childish games with the Wolverines. Speak out, because you know exactly what's going on, but you won't speak. It's an act of bloody cowardice, and you can cover any subject you like. And it's not about loyalty to the party. It's about loyalty to Australia. How about loyalty to your constituents? Every last one of you, you bloody children, grow up, do your bloody job. I mean, this is just infuriating. It's a game to them. They are destroying this country. Every time they don't open their mouth, their silence is consent. So pick a problem that you think the government's responsible for, write to them. If they don't say anything, they're good with it. Whether it's pedophiles, whether it's Chinese infiltration of the government, whether it's full-term abortion, they're all silent, every last one of them. They won't say a bloody word. Oh, not my area. No, not my area. Cowardice, treason, sedition is what they're guilty of. And that's it.
Yeah, it's certainly something we want them to live up to, the values that the promises they put forward. We're going to be tough on this. We're going to be tough on that. Well, where are the results? We want to see action. I'm only 23. I've been paying taxes for a few years now. I don't get why we're not seeing more anger from people, and they should be angry, because when they're angry, it's funny, the politicians, they know what they're meant to be doing. They all of a sudden do it when they see a little bit of anger. And it's just frustrating, because these people, like including yourself, you've been paying taxes for decades, and what's happening? They're making these terrible decisions, giving us all this debt, and and that's another issue to talk about. But I just don't get why people aren't more frustrated. I mean, I am frustrated because not only because I've only been paying taxes for a few years, but I'm frustrated because I'm going to be around with these decisions that they've made for a lot longer. Who knows how long I could live? I could maybe live to 150, who knows? But the problem is I'm going to be dealing with these things for a very long time. And I get frustrated when I see the way the government is dealing with these things. I mean, I already lost my job because of it. And I'm like, okay, you want to take my job? I'm coming after you now. That's a big problem with me, if you're going to give me all this debt to pay off the rest of my life. Riccardo, did you have anything else on the Australian end of the spectrum?
The religious freedom laws that are being proposed through the New South Wales Upper House by Mark Latham of One Nation. Now, Mark Latham's doing some great work on repairing the education problem here, particularly with curriculum. So he's doing great work there.
Yeah.
But there are big alarm bells running in relation to his religious freedom legislation. Now, saying against your religious freedom sounds like you're against motherhood and apple pie. But when you dive into it, you realise there's a bit of a problem here. And this goes back to the Australian people having the right to decide how they wish to be governed. Now, once again, all religions are not equal. All religions are not helpful. And to grant religious freedom carte blanche is insanity. Because up in Noosa, just north of the electorate I'm running in, which is Nicklin, they have a satanic church. And they claim it's a religion, so therefore we should have satanic instruction in school, perhaps. Now, are Australians happy with that? I wouldn't think so. Blood sacrifices, praising the devil, statues of goats everywhere like they do in the United States? No. This is not a healthy step forward because we get to decide what constitutes a religion. Just because you call yourself a religion doesn't mean that everything about that religion is good. And as we mentioned previously in relation to Islam, the religious element of Islam, that's their business, no problem. But the cultural and the political elements of it are completely unacceptable. Because once you say everybody gets, you call whatever you do a religion, and therefore you can't interfere with me, well, the trouble is the next thing you get is the blasphemy laws. And blasphemy, vilification, it starts off, you may not vilify my religion by saying it's a crackpot religion because I get offended, so we'll lock you up. And that sounds, well, we can't offend anybody. But then that's one step away from blasphemy. And then they can decide that you can't say what you want to say. You don't think this is going to happen? It already has in the ACT. They have blasphemy laws. And the head of ASIO previously, the former head of ASIO, said the same thing. He doesn't want to criticise Islam because it might be blasphemous. Since when did we go back to 600 AD? Blasphemy? Are you kidding me? We have countless men and women and blood and treasure have been sacrificed for the right to free speech. And we don't have it in Australia, but what little we have is being curtailed at the behest of barbaric concepts. So no, you don't have carte blanche freedom of religion for everybody. Australians have to decide for themselves what constitutes a religion and how much liberty they may have. It is a really interesting question, and it's one that we must decide for ourselves. And this is going to be part of our constitutional convention that Australia One will push for. Because we need to go back to the 1901 Constitution and then rebuild it from scratch to make sure it meets our needs. Because as I said, it's entirely inadequate for a 21st century Australia.
Yeah. The Religious Freedom Bill's certainly been something I've backed quite a lot. In recent weeks, I've been pushing a lot of people to sign the petitions, and we were very successful with that, getting 20,000 people to sign on with it. It seemed like at the time there was certainly something there, and I definitely want to investigate and have a think a lot more about those points. There definitely, this is the problem. The Turnbull government opened this can of worms with religious freedom and. Intentionally or unintentionally, they opened it with the same-sex marriage vote. And without sufficient protections, we've seen people losing their jobs, religious institutions being discriminated, not being able to, hire who they want, and, being sued left, right and centre by, people who go around for a living and just sue people because they're gay and so there's definitely a problem there. How it's addressed, I don't know. If you look at Mark's bill, it looks like, okay, this looks like it can solve it. Now, what's going to happen after the bill? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to solve the problem, and I don't know if it's actually going to. No. But it looked like it was a step in the right direction, and I still sort of think it is. But there's definitely, we might have to do a segment on this with someone where there's a bit of back and forth. Someone knows a bit more about it.
Well, do you remember there was an artist who created a piece called Piss Christ, and he had a plastic crucifix in a jar of urine.
Oh yeah, I've got that here actually.
All right, and this was put up on, it was displayed as the photograph of this thing, and it caused a hue and cry amongst Christians in Australia. They thought it was disrespectful, they thought it was blasphemous and the rest of it. But nobody threatened to kill anybody over it.
Yeah.
So that's freedom of expression. Do I find it offensive? Do I find it helpful? It's not relevant. I have an opinion, but my opinion shouldn't shape this individual's ability to be a jerk. And he certainly shouldn't be threatened with death. Yet, if I draw a picture of Muhammad, I can be put to death. Can you see where this is going, folks? Now, let's add one more layer to it, because I mentioned this at the religious freedom debate we had at the university with Mark. Freedom of religion doesn't mean freedom from religion. So all you atheists out there, if you want to get on the bandwagon and say we ban all religions, let's look down that path, because we have some historical examples of what a nation that is free from religion looks like. One was the Soviet Union, the next is Nazi Germany, and the last one is Communist China. And between them, they've only killed 100 million people, so, well done, the atheists. So I don't know how stupid you have to be, not about God. I don't care whether you believe in God or not. But if you think freedom from religion is going to save the planet, have a look at those three organisations running those three empires, and they were all free from religion.
Yeah, high score, 100 million.
Oh, you've got to get up early in the morning to kill 100 million people. So well done, the atheist empires. So let's be a bit sophisticated about this. Let's understand that one size does not fit all. We need an intelligent, informed debate, and the key point is Australians have got to decide what country they want to live in.
Yeah.
It's up to the people.
Yeah.
It is up to them. Sovereignty comes from each individual. They get to have their say. And they shouldn't be bamboozled and confused by shysters on the ABC, for example. Mark Latham is utterly sincere. I'm not including him in that group. He's utterly sincere. He wants to solve a complex problem. The trouble is his solution will only cause more problems down the track. That's my point of view.
Look, we're gonna do another segment on this for sure, because I want to hear that healthy back and forth. That's what we're all about.
Sure.
But the point must be made. Just today, this week or so, this last few days, Emmanuel Macron came out because there was a teacher that in France, she showed her students a picture of Muhammad. I don't know where she got it from, and a painting or something of Muhammad, and then she ended up getting beheaded by a Muslim in front of the school. I don't know how that played out, but that's insane. And so naturally, the president, Emmanuel Macron, president of France, had to address this, and he did, and he said, this is not okay. This is not okay at all. Now look what's happening. The whole of the Middle East, I don't know which countries, but a number of different countries, they've got riots going on. They're calling to boycott France and everything to do with France. That's the response. That's the response. Isn't that strange?
No, it's entirely consistent with the political elements of Islam. As I've said before, put the religion to one side. Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Salam. The goal of Islam is that the entire globe is Dar al-Salam and is the realm of peace. And everything else and that's what they want. And that sounds terrific, except peace is defined as where there is Sharia. So they want Sharia globally. That's Dar al-Salam. Anywhere there is not Sharia is called Dar al-Harb, the realm of war. So Australia is currently Dar al-Harb, the realm of war, and there are the lunatics that want to make it Dar al-Salam. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Now, it's not up to us to reform Islam, I can tell you that. It's not my job, it's not anybody's job, except the Muslims. Now, can Islam be reformed? Probably not. It is too ingrained. But there are variations. There are Islamic countries that eat pork. Yeah. And that's not supposed to be eaten. So there is a precedent, but it's not our job to do it. It's up to the Muslims to decide whether they want to follow their lunatic mullahs who take money out of Saudi Arabia to radicalise otherwise moderate Islamic countries, or they decide they want to become Australians. Because you can't be both. You cannot support the Wahhabis, the Salafists. You can't do it and be an Australian, because the two are so utterly unrelatable. And I'll finish my case by referring everyone back to His Highness Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan's statement. I can tell you, they keep a strong grip on their mullahs. Yeah. And if any mullah in the UAE steps out of line, they're for the high jump. Even the long beards. You can't grow a long beard if you're in the military, because that's a sign that you're out there. And we lost one of our guys when we deployed to Afghanistan with them. We lost one of our guys because he was a little bit too out there. His beard was a fraction long, and so he didn't come. That's how tight a leash they keep on their mullahs. Yeah. And yet these imbeciles in Australia, the politicians, are happy that there is an entire suburb, Lakemba in Sydney, where you cannot walk down the street because it might cause offence. And there's a video on that too. Yeah, look, guys, the internet is a very fickle place on this topic. It's very hard to find good voices on this. It's not our job to educate on you on Islam. These are just the policies of A1 that have been put forward. But if I were to recommend some people to listen to, maybe even some reformers, people trying valiantly to try and reform Islam, I'd strongly recommend you guys go listen to Majid Nawaz. He started the world's first it's not anti-Islamic, Islamic de-radicalization organization in the UK.
doing phenomenal work. He has his weekly show on LBC radio, and I'd also recommend Imam Tawhidi as well. But in Sydney, we actually have a producer. Her name's Susie Jamil. She did a documentary with Majid Nawaz and Sam Harris, and they talk about how they can sort of the future of the discussion. It's called Islam and the Future of Peace, and it's a phenomenal documentary. I recommend you guys watching it, and it really breaks down, as you were talking about, the different sort of circular nature of Islam, and how you've got the Wahhabis at the center and these Islamists that are just absolutely giving over 1 billion people a bad name. And the more educated you guys get on this, the better it'll be. But what we can't have is a situation where, and I'm not being racist here, this is just the stereotype, where white liberals are saying, you can't have this discussion, stop it right now because you're being Islamophobic. That doesn't help progressive discussion. That's very anti-progressive. But we're here for progress, we're here for honesty and truth, and that's what we're in pursuit of. Now let's move on to what everyone wants to talk about.
Sure.
The US election.
Oh, baby.
So we are currently 5 days away from the US election. It's on November 3rd US time, and it's on November 4th for us Australian time. I can't wait. This has been a 5-year journey for me. I used to be a progressive. I was devastated the last time Donald Trump won. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Isn't that insane? I used to be a donating member of the Young Turks as a student, and a progressive Black Lives Matter supporter, the whole thing. And in mid-2017, changed my mind. I kept an open mind. I used the same tools I have now, the same tools I'm trying to teach you guys, and I ended up changing to conservative. And this is where we're at. Donald Trump has made America truly a lovely place to live. Now, the riots aren't great, but it would help if some of the Democrat mayors pulled their head in and asked Trump for some help with the National Guard, which he can't deploy without their permission. But this is the year we've got. It's been an insane year. Do you have any thoughts on the US election? Well,
changing your mind is a good way to start, because what was trending on Twitter this week is, because they had postal votes and early voting, and what's trending on Google, I think, not Twitter.
Yeah.
Can I change my vote? Because the truth is coming out about the Bidens, Joe Biden, Creepy Joe, and his bagman's son, Hunter, doing, and we mentioned the deals that they've been doing, but all this truth is now coming out, and people are genuinely shocked and horrified. There is flood is an overstatement, but it's not hard to find an interview on YouTube of former Democrats apologising and now saying they support Trump because they realised they'd been lied to. They weren't bad people, they were just lied to, and they believed the lies.
Exactly, and we got those people here.
Right. And so the truth is coming around, and you mentioned the riots, and the riots are all in Democrat-controlled states, which are the worst states in the United States. They have the strongest gun control. They have the highest death by gunshot. They're appalling places to be. And so the country is swinging around, but it's a bit like turning a container ship. It takes several kilometres to change course. So is Trump going to win? Oh, without a doubt. It'll be a landslide. Even with the dodgy vote, it'll be a landslide.
Man, we've been saying that for months, haven't we?
We knew it. We knew it'd happen. They can't even cover up for Creepy Joe's senility now. He stumbles over his words. He's only there to be a prop for Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris is a completely compromised individual as the vice presidential candidate, and she'll do whatever's required to be done. And so it's just a joke. Trump is going to win. He's going to win bigly. We get 4 more years. Yeah. And the only real threat to the US isn't so much Trump's re-election as Trump's safety. And I mean this sincerely now. There have been multiple attempts on his life already. Doesn't get much airplay, but a lot. And they're going to get serious because they can't afford another 4 years of Trump. Because another 4 years of Trump is going to make the United States even stronger and safer and better and more powerful internationally, because he has been progressively degrading all the apparently insoluble global issues. One by one he's done it. North Korea's not a problem. Peace in the Middle East, my God, what else? What else can this man not do?
Peace in the Middle East. It's massive. 5 peace deals.
It was never done because they didn't want it done, because they needed the fight, they needed the tension, they're playing both sides against the middle.
Yeah.
And so, no, it's all good news for Trump, it's all good news for the United States, and therefore it's all good news for us because, as I said last time, I hope the truth starts to splash back onto Australia, and so Australians start to get incontrovertible evidence of the corruption that has flowed from the US into Australian politics particularly. That happens, watch this space. Australia will change as well.
People aren't going to know what to do. They're going to be shocked.
They'll have to go through the 5 stages of grief, and I mean that quite sincerely. If you're a psychologist, clear your books because you're going to get a lot of clients. Because denial is the first step.
Yeah.
Then anger.
Yeah.
And away you go through the 5 stages of grief. Yeah. And it's going to hurt a lot of people. But we have to go through it.
Yeah. And this just shows the immaturity of the progressives because they're still in the second stage of that anger. And it never ended for 4 years.
Yeah.
They denied it. They thought, there's no way. And then they got angry. They said, the whole country's racist. It can't be true. But they never progressed. Yet they're called progressives. I just think that...
well, the left's only there, not because it's a strongly held ideology, it's because the money funds the left resistance. The leadership of... the Democratic leadership and the leftist leadership, they're reasonably got a grip on it.
Yeah, you mean the corporate Democrats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the actual alleged massive movement, Black Lives Matter and anti, that's all there because it's funded. You take the money away, take away George Soros' money, it's gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's gone.
Absolutely. For those of you that don't understand, when we say the left over there, there's obviously different factions. There's the Democratic Party establishment. We call them the corporate Democrats, maybe the war hawks as well of the Democratic Party. They're in their little establishment area. Notable people include Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, historically, and, the head of the Senate there for the Democratic side.
Chuck
Schumer, thanks. Then you've got the Antifa types, who we all know that they're getting funded by George Soros, but the evidence is all there, and, they are a militia group. They are really nasty people. It is not a grassroots thing. They prey on some really, I don't know how to describe it. These poor kids, I feel sorry for them because they've been dealt a terrible set of cards, yet they get utilized and abused by this ideology because they hope that instead of dealing with the problems themselves, that this can deliver it for them. And then you've also got the progressives. Now, the progressives, we've got a lot in similar with the progressives. They genuinely want stuff like, Medicare for all. They genuinely want some of these things. Now, they do have a sliver of communists in there that are trying to constantly push them to seize private property and, seize everything, really. But those are roughly the 3 or 4 factions there. Conservatives have completely consolidated, including libertarians, behind Donald Trump. And that's how I know he's going to win. Because it's become less about the, who's a conservative. It's become more who's against this radical left wing. Because that's what Joe Biden is. He's just a puppet right now for the left wing. And it's funny you said the thing that people are changing their votes, especially in Pennsylvania. That was surging after the debate because he said the thing about the oil. We're going to end subsidies to the oil industry and we're going to phase it out. But look, guys, if you don't know what the hell's going on with the US election, I strongly recommend you guys listen to my conversation with John Ruddick. We covered everything. We made a ton of predictions, and I stand by those, whether it's the mail-in voting debacle and the election being dragged out, whether it's, the polls being completely wrong, why they're wrong, and, what we think the election result's going to be, which state is going to win, everything. It's all there. Now, I didn't get many views when I put it out because that's not what it was. The purpose of it was to go on record. So we could say, you are all wrong in the media. And this is how far back we could see it, because we got it on camera. So why do you have a job? It's an excellent question. Who knows, Riccardo? Maybe I'll be working in the ABC in a few months' time.
Well, after we sack the talking heads, replace the board, rewrite the charter, we need good, independent, thinking journos. So yeah, absolutely, mate. We'll put Rowan Dean as the managing director of the ABC. We'll have Professor David Flint as the chair.
Legend.
And you can have your own 1 hour slot at 7:30 every night.
Prime time.
There you go.
That would be pretty good. I can think of a few people that could populate the ABC, not just on the conservative side, the progressive side too.
No,
who would do a way better job than these.
We want the
so-called-
debate.
Absolutely.
We want the debate. And let me give you the benefit of the debate. Abortion's been a hot topic on Facebook and on Twitter in the last couple of days. And we got the initial rush of the Harridans who were screaming at us. No logic, just stuff. And then calmly and quietly, the evidence was put before them, including videos of what it looks like, the data, the rest of it, and they all ran. And there was silence. After about an hour, dead silence, because nobody had ever pushed back before and said, this is what it looks like. This is what it is. And all of a sudden they realised that a baby at full term isn't a clump of cells. In fact, a baby at 12 weeks isn't a clump of cells. In fact, the heart starts beating in 12 days. And when they were faced with it, they couldn't front it anymore. And that's how full-term abortion was allowed to creep into Australian law. You weren't allowed to have a comment, you weren't allowed to have a comment, you weren't allowed to have a comment, you weren't allowed to... Well, guess what? We made our comment, we've turned it into a debate. Nobody else was pushing this except us, and now everybody's on board.
Exactly.
A human life is a human life, folks.
Trump landslide, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to see it. Maybe even a 49-state landslide. I'm not even kidding. I don't think he'll flip California, even though the rallies there have been phenomenal. But I think it's going to be massive. And if he loses, throw it back in my face. I think it'll be hilarious. I'll be laughing if he loses. But at the same time, I just can't see a world... the Supreme Court just ruled, I think in Wisconsin, that they cannot count the mail-in ballots after 6 days if they arrive late. So that precedent is going to be used because it was done in the Supreme Court, it was the highest court in the land. That precedent is going to be used for all the states, I think. Now, I warned them in my segment with John Ruddock, and I've been warning him for months on my Facebook wall. If you do this, if you put mail-in ballots and you tell all your Democratic voters to do mail-in ballots, universal mail-in ballots, they get rejected at a higher rate than in-person voting. So you are eating away at your own voter base. You're idiots. And you know what's worse, Riccardo? This is hilarious. So you, on one side, you've got the Democrats saying, vote by mail-in ballot. On the other side, you've got Republicans saying, no, vote in person. It's the best thing you can do. You can early vote. You can absentee vote. That's okay. But vote in person. So the black vote has historically gone to the Democratic Party, over 70%. Black ballots, they make up 40% of ballots that are rejected are black ballots. And they're all Democratic because the Republicans are pushing for in-person voting. They are going to kill their black vote. They're going to kill it. And I can't wait to see the look on their faces. Folks, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy next week. Check out the CPAC live stream. We're covering all of this stuff. I hope John Ruddock's on explaining this with you. Maybe they'll chuck me on to explain this because I haven't heard many people talk about it in Australia. But we're in for a bumpy ride this next week or so. We've got Riccardo's election on Saturday with Tracy, in the Queensland election in Currumbin and in Nicklin. If you're up there in Queensland, go and help them out. Let them know that because they need boots on the ground, The Labor and Liberal Party and Nationals and Greens, they're freaking out because they know what's coming. And get out there, get in contact with Mark, and if you want Mark's number, I can give it to you. Send me a message on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Say, hi, I need Mark's number. Give him a message and sort it out. And if you're not in Queensland, you will definitely know someone, or someone you know will know someone in Queensland, and just spread the message. And that's the best thing we can do right now. So, Riccardo, if what happens is Trump, if what happens next week, because next week we record this, there's no, the day after the US election, we film this episode. If you get in, or Tracy gets in, or both of you, and Trump also wins, can you make a promise for me?
Sure.
All right. I'm going to get you and Romeo in, and you're going to do a Call of Duty session, and we're going to film it. If that were to happen, what do you say about that?
I'm in.
Okay, all right, guys. one more reason to vote for him.
Okay, I'll do a session on COD. No problem.
I think most of the people are just going to tune in to hear Romeo rage quit in it. I think
We'll do one-on-one so we can make it.
one-on-one. I love it.
Okay.
I love you, Romeo. But let's wrap the session up. Riccardo, these videos have been doing exceptionally well. We've gotten over 1 million views, guys. Thank you for sharing it. If you don't share it, they'll go nowhere. And we know that. You know that. I think you do, because we know what we bring to these discussions. And in terms of getting it out there, the algorithms, they're against us. I mean, look what they did to the Hunter Biden articles. They just censored it. And now they're answering for it in Congress in the USA. I need you guys to share these things, otherwise they'll go nowhere. So thank you, Riccardo. Did you have any other last words to finish off the segment for your voters?
No, you got me distracted. I'm thinking about COD. I've already slipped into making sure I get the right fit out.
You're thinking about your class,
that's it. Get the right fit out. Now, what am I going to use?
Yeah, that's it.
No, it's been. This is the culminating point. Is this election on Saturday?
Yeah.
But win, lose or draw, I think I'll sleep in on Saturday. I'll give myself a sleep until about 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. But win, lose or draw, this battle continues. We're not going anywhere. We just keep pushing. We keep pushing. We got the numbers that are joining up are growing daily.
Yeah.
And they want to fight. They want to fight, and they understand the way we're doing it. Grassroots, the members run the party. We set the framework up, and if you're comfortable in that framework, join up, fight for your electorate, become a candidate, because there's going to be a lot of by-elections coming up in the next 12 months. And we'll be contesting everyone where we've got a good candidate, and we've got the money and the boots on the ground. We'll be contesting everyone, and bit by bit by bit, we will become the party of government. So win, lose or draw, we continue. We keep going.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, guys, A1's hanging around. They're not going anywhere.
Oh, no.
They're a good investment for your time and effort and money if you can. And especially being there on site, that's invaluable. So that's something I want to leave you guys with. We're not going away. We're going to keep fighting this no matter win, lose or whatever, because these issues aren't going away and they need to be solved. We've all got kids, we've all got families. They need to be solved. The ARC, however, we've got a deadline. So at the end of the year, I will be making a decision whether this show continues. Vote with your money. If you guys are happy seeing this show, if you find it very educational, listening to some of our rebuttals on the Defence Amendment legislation bill, for example, and some of the other things we raise in these discussions, please donate to the show. It's the best way you can ensure it makes its way into 2021. And we will turn the country around if we keep this up. So Riccardo, thank you for your time, and I will see you guys next week.